You were listening to episode 231 of the Game Deflators Podcast. My name's John, and I'm joined by Ryan.
Hey, everybody, here at the Game Deflators Podcast, we like to talk about games. We've recently picked up games we're currently playing, and we struggle in silence in this week's Inflation Deflation Challenge.
So this week we're talking a little bit about Tenchu Z on the Xbox 360 for our inflation deflation segment of the week. However, we are also joined by Barry of Premium Edition Games.
Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for having me.
No problem, dude. So we looked on, and Barry has technically been with us for seven episodes, right?
Yep, this is 7.
Yeah, we might as well just have you as a regular. Just have
Yeah,
you. Well, you
exactly.
are a regular. Yeah. The Game Deflators with Barry Carenza.
There you go.
So yeah, we're happy to have you on again. We're going to be talking the most recent Premium Edition games direct. So that'd be pretty cool. But first, you can find us on thegamedeflators.com, our out-of-date website. You can find us on YouTube, where we are posting shorts. We've got videos. I love how Barry's laughing at the out-of-date website. It definitely is, dude. And we're just going to keep it that way. We pretty much just have our RSS feed goes in there. You can download and you can check out some old pictures. We got a Facebook and Instagram at the Game Deflators. You can find us on Twitter at Game Deflators, and of course the podcast application you are listening to right now. You can leave us a 5-star review and go to another podcast app if you're not on there and leave another 5-star review. We definitely appreciate it. Barry, do you want to let the people know, for the now 7th time, where you are located?
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at HawkHellfire. Please feel free to send me a message. Love talking video games. And you can find me both at nintendofuse.com and youtube.com/nintendofuse, as well as premiumeditiongames.com and at Premium Edition 1 on Twitter and Premium Edition Games everywhere else.
Thank you, sir. And a quick question. So to 7 times, is that only as Premium Edition Games? Because I think you've come on as Nintendo Fuse as well.
I believe once was Nintendo Fuse.
So this is number 8 then, technically.
No, 7 total.
Oh, 7 total. Okay. All right. You got a running list of every podcast that
do.
you're on.
Yeah,
I gotcha.
I do.
Nice.
He's a busy man.
He is.
Barry's done more podcasts than any of us.
Let's just this week, since we announced it, because we did the thing on Wednesday, 1 Wednesday, 2 Thursdays, 1 Friday, 1 Saturday, and now today.
Busy man.
Yeah,
Busy
he's definitely done more podcast episodes than us. All right, so let's talk our recent pickups. So I only had one. I picked up Kirby and the Rainbow Curse. So I got that on the Wii U the other day. I got a pretty good deal on it. So it was worth picking it up, primarily based on that. And it's funny when you see these advertised online, by the way, you have people that say, oh, it's complete in box. And other people say, oh, it's missing the slip. The slip is literally the white Nintendo slip. So what is complete in box about? Like, it doesn't matter if you get complete in box or if you get, disc in case only, because you're really missing out on a little white paper slip that says instructions on disc. So
they don't even put that like memo square in there anymore, do they? Where you could just like write a note to yourself, write down passwords or whatever.
Not that I'm aware of. Now Premium does. I know in our copy of Rain on Your Parade that we got and reviewed last week, there is memos in the back, which is a nice little add-on to that. We really called that out, actually.
we actually show that to any developer we're talking with that hasn't heard of us before, and we show that at conventions to people who haven't heard of us, just because it's part of our childhood, right? All the NES manuals had that, all the Game Boy manuals and Super Nintendo, they all had that. So I never used it because I never wanted to damage my copy, but I picked up used games with passwords written in there and little hints in there. So we wanted to include it for nostalgia, and if you happen to want to use it, it's there.
My favorite is when you pick up a used copy of a Mortal Kombat game and there's always like a loose leaf piece of paper that has all the fatalities written out. I'm like, oh, somebody did the work and I don't have to Google now. So it's good stuff. But yeah, that was my only pickup this week. Ryan, how about yourself?
You're not going to tell us what you're playing first?
I guess. Yeah, I guess I could tell you that. Forgetting our own flow, right? So Cardia, The World of Fate. I am still playing that. So Barry, I think I started it when you came on a while back as our new games resolution. And Cardia It's pretty good. I'm on chapter 5 of the second story now. So the way it's laid out, and I think I mentioned this last week, it's based on 2 novels technically, and I'm starting to get more of a feel for like why there's no towns and all this other stuff, because the way it is broken out, it's 2 stories. So it's almost like playing a visual, or a visual novel in a sense, but just PS1 tactical RPG base as your main point.
In between all the visual novel parts.
Yeah, and what's funny is I've always said I'll never play a visual novel because I just can't stand them. And yet here I am. I got stuck with that being my New Games resolution because I didn't think anything of it. So the first story is pretty good. With Lacrima and going through all of that. So I discussed that last week. The second story follows Toxa, this just kind of lone knight who's going around and helping out these groups, in this world. And I'm actually preferring Toxa's story a bit more. Like, while Lacrima's was decent, the Toxa story is really filling in all of these gaps that you didn't know about. And I think that's kind of the big part, right? Is like you play these 2 stories to understand the full story as a whole. Barry had mentioned last week on our podcast that I really wish that the developers would just combine it from the get-go and just flashed you in between, versus like bang out 17 hours with this one story and then, okay, you're cool, now we're going to start you from level 1, bang out another 17 hours on this other story as your second playthrough. And you have to do it because otherwise you're not going to know anything that's going on the back end. Like, I got the story the first go around, but I only got one part of it. And now that secondary part's coming, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Oh, that's how they knew about this person coming in to attack. That's how they knew that these people were invading this location before it even happened. Like, you get all of those things that they really don't cover in the very beginning. So,
and you can like choose either path from the beginning. So it like gives you all the tutorial stuff over again. Like you're starting like you never played.
Yep, pretty much. So it's interesting, but I'm getting a better feel. I've already got a better feel for it, right? The combat was easy to kind of grasp. Towards the end of the game, I got a better feel for combat. And now that I'm replaying, I'm on chapter 5 already. And honestly, it would have taken me a lot longer if I hadn't known anything about it, right? I'd probably be on chapter 2 because each chapter is honestly about an hour to play through, like between dialogue and an actual battle. Once you finish chapter, you're 1 hour in. So the whole idea of like, oh, it's 34 hours of gameplay is definitely true, because you're 17 hours. There's 18 chapters total, with one of those chapters being pure dialogue with no battle. So it goes through with like 10-15 minutes. So it's an interesting
one. Is this
one.
Converting you to give visual novels a shot? Because
absolutely
I got a list
not.
Of great visual novels that are absolutely worth it.
Absolutely
I think this
not.
is just one of those games that you got to just like grind through. Kind of like, I was never able to bring myself, and I'm not saying Persona is a bad game. Persona 4 is a very great game and millions of people love it. I love it myself, but just like at 12 hours in, I made one mistake and I was like, I just can't see myself doing this for 90 more hours at this point in time.
So you stretch that shit out the entire year to be like, oh, I just haven't played Persona this week. I haven't played Persona, when you could have just picked a new game.
Yeah, well, you know what? I wanted to do it. I didn't do it. You know what? It's okay. It didn't happen.
Barry,
this
man stretched it out for an entire year. He played like 12 hours in
I'm
the
gonna
first
finish
month.
Pikmin for sure, and probably soon.
Because it's 8 hours long.
Yeah, I know. I've only got like 6 hours left.
Did you see what I deal with, Barry?
I would expect nothing less from Ryan.
So yeah, visual novel wise though, I'm really not gonna get interested in them. I understand the concept, I get it, but I just can't get into it, man. Like the whole like 2 characters on screen just talking, in most of them, right? I know they're not all like that, but like the bulk of what I see is like the characters on screen, the dialogue comes up, and I'm just like, ah. And sometimes it's like the Japanese ones are very good, but there's no English dialogue, so I'm like reading subtitles. I'm like, man, I could just watch an anime and get as much enjoyment.
I want to play some. I want to play like Danganronpa.
Danganronpa is great. Zero Escape trilogy is phenomenal. Those are 2 I highly recommend. And then there's other ones that are one that took me by storm. I couldn't put it down, and it was very simple, but the story was so captivating. Was Raging Loop. It's on the PS4 and Switch, and it's just gets you. The AI games, Somnium Files, and
I knew it.
Initiative.
I knew I had visual novels lurking in my collection, and AI. So the AI game is one of those.
There's 2 of them, and they're
Yeah.
both phenomenal games.
That one's in my collection.
But
I didn't
see,
know it was visual
there's
novel.
visual novels, but they have other things to it. So like AI is visual novel. You get to go to different places and talk because you're a cop, you're investigating. But the cool thing about AI is when you catch a perp, for example, and in real life it's like, oh, what do you know about the crime scene? And they're like, oh, nothing, I'm not there. I want my lawyer. In this, you kind of get to put them in a machine and go into their subconscious, and now you're actually
Goes
walking
to the
around.
shell.
You're walking around in their subconscious trying to trigger memories and take away mental locks to get the truth of the situation. And you only have so much time to do it, and every action costs you time. So you're constantly going between a visual novel and this internal psychological mental gameplay. So it's really cool.
To the Moon meets the American police force and their policies. I get it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's awesome, and it's one of those games that when you beat AI completely, because it's the tree system, so you're going to get multiple different endings. But when you get the true ending, it's one of those, holy crap! I never saw that coming in a million years.
Dang.
That was amazing, like mind blown moments. That's going to make you want to do the sequel. And that's the same guy who did the Zero Escape games, and the same thing. Like,
Okay.
if you like mind blowing moments,
I will give that one a chance.
What's the game?
Mainly because I already bought it. AI.
the Somnium.
Yeah,
it's the
Somnium
Somnium
Files.
Files is the first one, and then the Nirvana Initiative is the second one.
Yeah,
I will give that one a chance.
I definitely need to know the name, because in today's day and age, you can't just Google AI and expect to get any kind of filtered result.
Yeah, it's just phenomenal.
So Barry, for you, I will attempt that game after I beat Stray and after I beat Rain on Your Parade.
Oh, it's like a newer game. I thought it was like an older game.
Well, Nirvana Initiative just came out last year.
Yeah, the
Somnium
other one
Files was
a few years ago.
Yeah. But it's the same developer from Zero Escape. And like one of the cool things that they actually did in Nirvana Initiative, and this is, I won't gonna say it's a spoiler, but it's just kind of like an homage, is that you get points. Then you could use those points to buy, like concept art and stuff like that. And one of the things you could do is you could actually purchase a special thing after you beat the game of Nirvana Initiative for 999 points. And it's literally the very beginning of 999, the first Zero Escape game, but with the characters from AI in it instead. It's like really cool crossing the path. And if you've never heard of the Zero Escape games, 999, Virtue Last Reward, and Zero Time Dilemma, you're honestly doing yourself a disservice by not trying these games. They also came out as the Nonary Files, as a collection of the first 2 games on PlayStation, Vita, and PS4. And those are escape room visual novels. Those are, you go into a room and you got to figure it out. You're walking around in 3D, picking up different parts, all puzzles to get out of the room, while trying to solve the mystery of where you are. And you also can vote. Some of the games involve voting on who you want to kind of eliminate. So there's murder involved, and it's very adult, but it's a lot of fun. So I highly, highly recommend those games. Just like Danganronpa. Danganronpa is also Phoenix Wright, another one.
Danganronpa is actually in my collection too. All these visual novels, yeah, they're in there.
Danganronpa is all murder mysteries. It's all trying to figure out the crime, and then you go into like a courtroom kind of deal, and you have to figure out who the culprit is, because the culprit is one of the people there. And they're great.
You know what I think it is over time because I like to collect RPGs, and I think over time, because some of those are noted as RPGs, and I don't necessarily dive in as like, oh, let me see exactly what the gameplay is of this RPG. It's more so, does it have good reviews, and is it an RPG? And then you pick it up and it turns into a visual novel.
Since you've started collecting, I would say that RPG elements have invaded like almost every genre, like CarPGs. Like shmups are all part RPG now. Shooters are all half RPG.
Did you say CarPG?
Yeah, CarPGs.
As in like car RPGs?
Yeah, like where like in
cars?
Forza you like get cars and stuff, but there's like other ones where it's like you start off in your like crappy little Nissan and you drive your way up and buy upgrades, and eventually by the end of the game you get like supercars and stuff, but you don't start off that way.
Oh. Okay.
I mean, anything that
So
has stats that you manage and go up over time is basically like some type of RPG, right?
So the Game Deflators is an RPG then because our stats have gone up over time, and
Yeah,
yeah,
dude, we're a level
okay.
5 wizard.
Yep.
Didn't I tell you?
No, you didn't. Okay, that's good to know. Ryan, since you called me out on not my currently playing, Barry, you're next.
So currently I'm playing Atelier Rise 3. I just did the first two. I hadn't done the series before, speaking of RPGs, and I wanted to give it a shot after I saw the trailer for the third game because it looked incredible. And I'm so glad I got into the series. The Rise games are so much fun. The first one is probably the most jank of them, but it's very impactful in terms of story. And these are crafting RPGs where you can make so many different things. You could, you're having problems. You could upgrade gear. You can make better gear. You can give it like full stats. Weapons, same thing. But you also have to craft to solve problems, either for people like in Quest, but also for story. And the story involves other dimensions. It involves history. It involves ruins. Just it's amazing what they did. Like the first game is isolated to like this one area. The second game takes you off from your isolated island to the capital, and then the third game actually brings you back to the isolated area. And I was like, oh, this is cool, seeing it in more higher definition, and it's open world in the third game, and like there's all these callbacks to the first game, especially like, oh, remember this, little flashback scenes, and new areas to explore. And I was like, this is great. Like I love walking around this world. And then all of a sudden, like this new person comes and like, oh yeah, we're from another country, never been talked about before. And like, oh, can we go there? I'm like, wait, what? Like I thought the whole game was going to be like the first map. No, now we're in a whole new world map to explore that's open world as well. I'm like, this game is huge. So it's a lot of
Nice.
fun. I'm hoping to finish it before Tears of the Kingdom. That's my goal, but it is a great cast of characters, great turn-based combat. It's more like, it's not even like turn-based. It's more like the ATB system of Grandia and Final Fantasy, where the characters will automatically act, the enemies will automatically attack, uh, and you can pull off some really cool combos. And I like the item system. Like so many games, you have like 10 high potions. You use one, you're down to 9. In this game, you get what is CC. So every time you do like special attacks, you gain CC, and at any time, even if it's not your turn, for the penalty of a delay, you can stop the game completely, pull up the item menu, and use your items. But they're non-consumable. So you could just spend your time crafting like the ultimate potion, and as long as you have the CC, because it may cost 3 CC, you can keep using it 18 times a battle. There's no worry about it. So it's not like I made this great potion, but I want to save it for the end boss. You could utilize it as long as you keep attacking, and I love
Very
that
cool.
system. Yeah, it's great. It takes away all the anxiety of using items for me.
Nice.
I know. How many times have we all played a game and it's like, good thing I've got all these max potions and super elixirs for the final boss, and then still didn't use them.
Yeah. Or you use one and you have anxiety, like, well, I'm only going to go down to 98. I guess that's okay. I guess I should still have enough.
Oh man, shades of PS1 Final Fantasies.
But yeah, no, it's a really great game, and
Nice.
definitely it's a long running series. But if you haven't played them, I do recommend them, and I
Yeah.
do recommend starting from 1 because they are all very connected.
Nice. And what about recent pickups this week?
So
Don't you know everything that came out for the Switch?
Everything that came out on Switch.
for the Switch stuff, yeah. But I'm still going for like what I call the museum pieces, the stuff that I hunt for, the stuff that I think is more interesting than just, oh, they came out for Switch. So I did get 2 this week. One, not really truly a video game, but just something I really thought was neat. I got a digital camera called the Digio, and what makes this really unique is that it was made by Sega. Only in Japan. It was a Sega-made digital camera. So I'm like, all right, that's kind of cool. Like, it's quirky, it's cool.
It could be video game related. You just got to find the nearest haunted house in New Jersey and make it Fatal Frame.
I could,
Interesting.
yeah.
There you go.
But yeah,
It's a cool looking camera.
Yeah, it is. It's a very cool looking camera. It's only released in Japan. But again, Sega made a digital camera like that's so out there. So I'm like,
And
I
it's
gotta
got the
pick this up.
logo like hot on the front of it too.
Yep. So I'm like, I gotta pick this up. It's just a quirky thing to grab. And then another thing, speaking of Sega, a lot of people know about the Sega Pico. It came out here in America. It was their, their early system in terms of for early age. It was a child system well before like Leapfrog was doing it. But a lot of people don't realize that there was actually a console war for the early education market. And Sega wound up winning that war with the Pico, but their competitor was not Nintendo, was not Sony, was not Microsoft, was not even Atari, but it was Konami. Konami actually had a console prior to called the Picno that was is very similar to the Pico, and it came out prior. And when the Pico came out from Sega, to combat it, Konami made a Picno 2, which was pretty much the same thing but with cheaper components to lower the price on it. And it still lost the war. There was only like 23 games I think released for the Picno, but I had the first version, but I finally found a Picno 2 CIB. Also only in Japan, so I'm like, all right, let me grab that. So that came in this past week, and it's not something I'm planning to play, but I love the history of that. It's a console war no one really talks about, or many people don't even know about, and it's nice to be able to put both consoles next to each other to talk about it.
Is that this one with like the Rugrats looking background and like the two chibi characters on the box? Picno 2?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great box.
Yeah.
Ryan's like, I need one.
Well, he said he got it CIB, and the box is what you're paying for, man.
Yeah, the box is what you're paying for. It is absolutely a crazy thing. And it's Konami. It's not even like an offshoot Chinese company. It's Konami. It's a major player.
Those are some awesome picks.
Yeah. So I managed to get those in.
I would laugh if Konami did an April Fool's Day joke of releasing the Picno 3.
I don't think Konami even remembers that exists.
Right? That's lost to their time.
All right, Ryan, what do you have in store for us this week?
So not a whole lot. Game Pass is getting a couple things. So I think Minecraft Legends comes out today on there, or maybe tomorrow. So I'll probably be checking that out. A couple of people I like put out some reviews and said that was really good, actually, and surprisingly different than what you would expect. And then along those same kind of lines, I got Loop Hero on Game Pass, and I had heard a lot about that before. I figured it would probably come to something like this eventually, so I just kind of hung around and waited. But it's a pretty fun little title. The concept is you are like a little hero and you are walking along a looped path. Enemies spawn on the path. When you run into enemies, it just goes into you fighting them every like second or however quick your attack speed is. You don't directly interact with combat at all. But after each battle, you will get like either some gear or a card. You equip the gear. You've got like gear slots like any normal adventurer. And then the cards, you lay down tiles on the map. Some of the tiles go directly on the path and spawn new enemies. Some of the tiles go around the loop path to build up the larger world around it and a map, or maybe will spawn a treasure, or maybe will be like a cemetery that'll spawn a skeleton every couple of days. You just keep going around the loop, fighting enemies, getting loot, equipping new items. You have to manage your inventory because when you equip like a weapon or a shield or an armor or whatever it is, you only have like 12 inventory slots, and you get those automatically from killing enemies. Once you equip a new item, the old one is gone. So it just overwrites whatever your equipment is. So you kind of get into this loop where you have to fight enemies until you get a next comparable gear slot, equip all of the lesser versions of that to get them out of your inventory, and then end up finally equipping the one that's the most comparable to what you were wearing before or an improvement. So you're managing your inventory, you're making the map harder by making more enemies spawn on it, and everything just kind of happens passively. It's not like a hugely interactive game, but you build up resources after each map, and those go to another screen where you slowly build up, longer term resources at a camp that you take with you into these loops. So I've been doing that, like, I don't know, I think I spent like an hour, maybe an hour and a half on it. I did like 2 or 3 loops, got to like kind of like a first like boss. It's all very meta narrative too. Like your hero like lost his time and his reality, and there's this skeletal necromancer who has like isolated all memories and things of reality and all individual items to different pocket dimensions. So like you're literally just in this void building the world from memories as they come to you through these encounters and stuff. So it's got a lot of interesting stuff to it. I find it interesting so far, and I see why a lot of people really liked it.
Very nice. And obviously no progress on Pikmin, right?
No, I got like 6 more hours of that. I don't know. I think I need to get back to that and get that done soon, just so you stop bothering me about it. And then I've just been too afraid to go back to Brave Fencer Musashi to see if like I'm really screwed myself with the like autosave functionality, or if it's manageable.
Yeah, I'll start that one soon, and then hopefully we get to the point where you got stuck at with the autosave, and then I can pick it up. But let's go ahead and get to our discussion topics. So I'm going to turn it over to Frankenberry to talk about premium edition games.
I love that joke. I laughed so hard.
Yeah, we it's an internal thing that Jeff likes to.
Oh, it's external now.
Whenever we're in the same, vicinity. Yeah, good old.
It's out there, man. It's on YouTube now.
It is.
It's now on the Game Deflators podcast. Like you guys are screwed.
People have asked us to make a cereal called Frankenberries.
Well, it's canon now on this podcast.
This was a great presentation.
We gotta have.
I really loved how much interaction and different people were involved in it.
Yeah, that's one of the things we wanted to do. Is we always try and highlight different cast members or team members to be a part of the show, do different segments, present different things, and show that it's not just 1 or 2 people at the face of the company, because it's not. We're a team. There's no one over others. We all work together. So we try and do that, really.
How do you guys actually record? I'm curious, like, how do you guys record this? Like, are you all in like something like this, what we're on right now, or how does it all work out?
We pretty much leave it to whomever is in each segment. When the script goes out, I write the script and I send out an email and be like, here's the script, here's the segments, for recording. Get with your partner. It's not all done in one shot. And most of it is, just get on a call and record. Like my things with Jeff was recording, but he could only record and use his phone. So I was stuck on the phone with him. So while I was recording my lines, I had my phone up to my ear, listening to him while recording through the computer. So we did that so we could play off each other. Sometimes if they just, schedules don't mesh, you'll just record, we use Audacity. They'll just record on their own, and then our editor will piece it all together.
That's cool.
So it's all independent, because juggling 6-7 people, everyone all together, is a nightmare because we're all so busy. So it's like, just do it on your own time. And we do multiple takes so that the editor can piece it. And usually the first take is more like reading it verbatim from the script, and then the second take, what to expect. You loosen up a bit.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Fun.
Well, what's the down low on the most recent Direct?
There's a lot of good stuff. So we've got several games. We first off, we talked about Series 4, that all our Series 4 titles are in hand, which includes Rain in Your Parade, which you guys did coverage for. Wonderling DX and Rack and Ruin, they're all in hand and shipping. Production for Series 5 is underway, and we should hopefully have them very soon, which is, Raji, They Bleed Pixels, Love 3, and Eagle Eye Twist, as well as our PlayStation Series 1. Those are in production as well, so hopefully we have those soon. That is Phenotopia and a Music Racer Ultimate right now. All those are still available. You could still order them on the website, so definitely check those out. But then, of course, we talked Series 6, which a lot of people have been speculating, what's it coming, what's going on with it, and two new Switch games are coming out in Series 6. The first of which is going up in 2 weeks, and that is Wife Quest. And Wife Quest is a game from Pippin Games and East Asia Soft. It is an action adventure, and we were talking about RPG elements. RPG elements are in this game, very good RPG elements. It's got a great upgrade system, a progression, challenging levels, challenging bosses. The bosses are really tough, and they get progressively more harder. It's like a Mega Man style system where you beat a boss, you gain power, and then you can use that to backtrack and go into other previous levels to collect more things. It is a very, very comedic story where you play the titular wife, Mia, who is on a quest to save her husband, Fernando, from all the women creatures that want him for themselves. And, the cool thing is you can not only just defeat enemies as you go through, but you could do finishing moves on the enemies where you can strangle them, you can rip their wings off, you can break their backs, you can break their legs, and you kill them in very comedic, brutal ways. But it's all fantasy violence, so it's all good. Ton of fun. This is a game that I got for Nintendo Fuse to review when it came out. And after playing 2 levels, I called up East Asia Soft and I was like, we need more codes for the team. I would like to do this physical. And really glad that it all came about and we were able to make it happen, because this is one of those titles where at first glance you might be like, this looks silly, but when you play it, it's like, this is amazing. It's modern retro done right, and we're really happy to be bringing that out. Again,
that one,
standard retro as well.
That one definitely caught my attention watching it direct. Like, just the story is what's really funny there.
Yeah.
Like, that's really what kind of draws you in. Not necessarily, in my mind, a gameplay. It's more so like you're playing a wife trying to save this guy from evil women, basically. Like that that kind of caught me immediately. I'm like, yeah, this is one to play.
Oh, yeah. Sure. And if you like 2D action adventure style games, platforming and stuff, you'll really like it. It controls really well, and there's a lot of hidden secrets and hidden rooms, and and it gives you, at the end of the level, it gives you like your progression, things you've missed and stuff, and so you can go back. But it's tough. It has unlockable modes as well when you beat it, but it is an awesome game. So we're really happy to be working with them. And then the second game for the Switch, which goes on for pre-order tomorrow as of the time of recording, so it'll probably be up by the time this goes out, is Super Dungeon Maker, which we are so thrilled to be bringing out. This is the Zelda maker that we all wanted Nintendo to make. They refused to make it. So, the wonderful team over at Firechick and Roca Play said, fine, we'll do it ourselves. The whole Thanos. That's exactly what they did. This game is like Infinite, A Link to the Past, or Minish Cap style dungeons. There's a bunch that are made by Roca Play that you could just play as you explore the little overworld you get. On top of that, you can create your own, and you can do small dungeons. You could do huge dungeons. You could go up to 7 floors in a dungeon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Each, unlike like Link's Awakening, where it's like squares, every room is a square, you draw whatever shape you want. You draw the room, so you can make it a diamond, a star, a square, a U, a T, whatever your heart contents. You can change the doors to be standard doorways. You can make them so you have to defeat all the enemies to unlock it. You can make them key doors. You could do the boss key door. You could put bosses, wherever you want. You could put traps where you walk in and spawns enemies. You can make treasure chests spawn when the enemies die. You could do everything you normally would like to do with Zelda. You could do it where, because you have the floors where you could fall down from one floor onto the ground in another floor. Just really have some fun with it. And the creator is very easy to use. And then, of course, you can play community dungeons. So this game has been out for over a year on early access on Steam. This is cross-play, so there's already so many dungeons of varying difficulties and quality that you could already play. Just like Mario Maker, you can get a dungeon that's absolutely terrible, and you can get one that's like 40 minutes to an hour of mind-bending puzzles that's expertly crafted. And it's just a lot of fun. You can challenge your friends. Different, you get the code when you make a dungeon. You could say, "Hey, put this in and play." It's awesome. And
I have a question on this one.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure, or maybe I missed it during the trailer, but like in Zelda, obviously a lot of dungeons are like, this is the boomerang dungeon or the bow dungeon or whatever. So like, do you have all kinds of like different equipment that you like limit the player to go through, and then you can build like a sequence of dungeons so that they kind of like start off with only like few items and get more?
So the dungeons, they haven't made the world maker yet. They're talking about doing it. They want to see how well it goes. It's a small team. It's just a few people. But the way it works is every dungeon you start off with your sword, and that's it. Every
Okay.
dungeon. So it's up to the creator to put in as many extra items as they want. The shield, the rock's feather, the hook shot, bombs, whatever. So you can get a dungeon that has a bunch of different equipment, or you can get a dungeon where the whole time all you have is a sword.
Very
Um,
cool.
so you have to play based on that. Of course, with bombs, you got bombable walls. You have the little crack you can see, and hook shot, of course. And you would make the dungeon to utilize the stuff or not. I mean, it's up to you. So that's what's really neat about it. So every dungeon, and if you say, I want to make a super powered, like end game Zelda dungeon, you can have the starting room just have chests with all the equipment and give them to them right away, and then say, you're going to need all these kind of deal. Or you can make them have to go down different corridors and basement to find the bombs, and then come backtrack to where they need it. And you just have fun with it, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah,
This
this looks like such a good game to like really invest a lot of time into.
hmm Now it's neat is this game isn't even digitally out yet. It comes out May 3rd, so our pre-orders actually go up first, and we're gonna do our best to get it out there as soon as possible. Of course, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom drops in May as well. So right after you guys finish and everyone finishes Tears of the Kingdom, this is a perfect way to go right back into Zelda and 2D Zelda, and we're excited to see what people craft, and we want people to share their dungeon codes, and absolutely we want people to be involved. And there's already a community that does that with Roca Play, and we absolutely want to work with them to expand that community. It's just an awesome title, and I'm so glad we were able to make this happen. This is like almost a dream one for me because I'm such a huge Zelda fan, and since it's obviously coming to the Switch, it's been approved by Nintendo. That kind of tells me Nintendo has no plans for a Zelda maker anytime soon because they approved this. So,
Yeah.
so this is it. This is your Zelda maker, and we'll be able to give you a physical, of course, standard and retro. So yeah, it's an awesome title. And then we're going with that's another NES game. So we did Ore Body Binder's Tale before, which was very successful. So now we have a second NES title called Bobby 67 Time Traveling Detective, where you have to go through multiple different eras in this 2D action platformer that runs on the NES. It is an NES game to stop the evil half man, half fish from turning all the traffic lights green. That is his evil dude, duty out there, and his deed. And you got to try to stop him while trying not to lose your job. This is just a fun game from Cal Games. Clay, the developer, is an awesome guy, passion project of his, and it's great to be able to work with him to bring out a physical version. And our physical version actually has some exclusive items that is not available on the because there's a ROM you could download because it's an aftermarket game. That's not going to be available in that ROM. It's exclusive to our physical version. So we got some really cool stuff. So if you're an NES collector, if you like playing on the NES, this is a brand new NES game for the system, playable right on your gray toaster. So we're really happy to be bringing this one out as well. That's going up in 4 weeks, I think.
Will it be compatible with things like aftermarket consoles like a Retron, or you don't know?
It should be, but I'm not sure.
I know Retron's like picky.
Yeah,
usually.
Retron's picky because it has to have the ROM in there. So if they load the ROM, it might work, but it might not be the exclusive version. But it would work with like analog, for example,
Gotcha.
because that runs off of the cart. So those are the big ones. And then we did a couple others. We gave an update on Sunshine Anthology, which is our compilation of Camp Sunshine and Sunshine Manor from Fossil Games. We're still waiting for the final port of both games before we actually put up the physical, but they should have at least one of the ports in hand right now, running on the Switch. And once they have that all done and they can release it and we get the word, we're gonna go ahead. But we're stuck waiting on them, so it's not us, it's them. But can't wait. People have been asking for that for years. And then, of course, a Kickstarter going on right now as we speak. Chadtronics Poglings. We working with Chadtronic to get his Kickstarter off the ground, and it didn't just get off the ground; it soared. It's almost 6 times the original asking price at this point. And we're happily doing the physical, which is going to have a Kickstarter exclusive version of the physical. So if you're interested in that, the only way to get it is through the Kickstarter. The plushie that is being offered is also through us, and that is an exclusive color. The yellow color is exclusive to the Kickstarter. At a later time, when the game is done, we will have standard and retro versions on our website that will be different than the Kickstarter one, as well as other plushy colors for Poglings, but not the Kickstarter yellow. So that's going on right now. It's got like 25 days left as of the recording. So definitely give him some love, give him some support, and support the physical. We would really appreciate that. And this way you get a Kickstarter exclusive. And the last thing was our one more thing, our hype button, which was a game that actually was supposed to be part of Series 6. We just weren't able to seal the deal in time because we don't want to rush our developers and we don't want to rush our designers because we used all different artwork and art pieces. And so it's been moved to Series 7, but that is a game called Anuchard from Freedom Games. This is a quirky Zelda-style top-down action RPG with the story and the writing is equivalent to like the Mother series. It is very funny. It's got a great art style, fantastic soundtrack, and it's one of those where I hadn't heard of it before talking with Freedom Games. I'm so happy to be working with them. And ever since then, we've gotten messages like, "Oh, I just saw like a top 10 Zelda-style games, and Anuchard was number one, and I'm so glad you announced it." And we look forward to being able to talk more about that, when Series 7 launches. But we're happy to be able to express like this is coming. This is an awesome one, and we're happy to have it.
Yeah, Ryan, I immediately messaged Barry right after watching the direct when I saw that hit. I was like, this looks badass.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty stoked for that one. All right, cool. Barry, thanks for the update. Always appreciate learning about the directs and really just kind of hearing all the back end details too that we don't always necessarily get on the direct. So it's cool to kind of get that every time that you come on. So this week, our articles that we're going to cover, or not necessarily articles, but stories really, right? There are insiders that believe the PlayStation Q Lite handheld should be around $200. So if you didn't know about that, Sony appears to be re-entering the handheld market. A U.S. senator recently asked the Sony CEO to reveal PlayStation's game exclusivity deals. And then also Nintendo is escalating its war on popular Zelda YouTubers behind the multiplayer Breath of the Wild mod. So our first one here is the PlayStation Q Lite, and that's obviously a code name. This was Avinash Jasrani of Tech4 Gamers that's covering this. And really, it just kind of goes into detail on, what they're kind of anticipating this to be. It's supposed to be more of a cloud-based handheld console that would link within Bluetooth and Wi-Fi type, range to your PlayStation 5. So not truly like a get out of a house and have something to play with.
It's a remote play device,
basically.
Yeah.
And so the big thing that people are kind of bringing up is like, well, I can remote play on my phone with a PlayStation controller. So why do I need this in particular? The way I kind of see it is if this is built specifically to work with the PlayStation 5, it's almost like, I don't want to say it, but I do want to say it's almost like their answer to the Switch, right? Like, hey, somebody wants to use a TV, you want to keep playing your game. Okay, cool. I can take this and continue playing my game. Or, I need to go to the bathroom, right? Because we all do that anyways. Let me continue playing my game in the bathroom. I want to go upstairs. I'm getting ready to go to sleep soon, but I want to finish up this level. Let me take this with me, go upstairs, finish playing my game, and so on. So that's kind of how I envision this. But a lot of people are slamming even a $200 price point in that it's not like it's got a crazy bunch of tech. It's not running anything specifically. It's just kind of connecting one device to the other. So people are like, $200? Really? Like that seems a little steep for something of its nature. But I guess it depends on the control component, right? Like what are you getting with that? Are you getting all of the DualSense type stuff within that control? And if you are, then I would say then it probably is worth $200 at that point.
Yeah, because those controllers are like $70 at least. I'm assuming.
Yeah, they are.
And then you want to throw an 8-inch OLED in there, or LCD, I guess, not OLED. So, I mean, it's not even OLED. Like, I guess they're keeping the price down wherever they can. But, I mean, just the limited capacity of it is what drives me crazy. Like, when they tried to do the Microsoft one that came out like a few months ago, the G Cloud or whatever, like, people slam that too because it's just cloud. Like, people love the Steam Deck because it runs their entire freaking Steam library native. Like, that's what people want. Like, battery life be damned. They want to be able to take it with them and not have to connect to the internet. And I just don't see this being something that's going to really hit home with enough people to be viable. I mean, they were already, talking about poor, disappointing sales for the PSVR 2 compared to what their original projections were. So now you're telling me for the whole host suite and to have their ideal version of the home setup, I need to pay like $1,300 for everything now? I don't see this fitting into many people's lifestyle in a way that's convenient, especially because like they show the Backbone controller all over the place now, which is just wraps around your phone and basically creates the same device, but that's $100. So for half the price of what they're talking about, you've got it on your phone and you could play the same thing basically.
Not only that, but how many people have their phone on them? This is now another device you need to carry with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a novel idea, but I almost feel like Sony is kind of taking a page from Google, where they create things just to let them die. I mean, the iToy, the PS3 Move, the PS4 camera, the PS5 camera. Does anyone remember that the PS5 launched with an extra camera that you could buy? That is still sitting on my TV because I bought it thinking I was going to need it with VR2, and it's not used for VR2, and there's no application that uses it. And I look at it every time I look up at my TV going, what is the purpose of this device?
To spy on you.
But they released a PS5 digital camera, like a webcam, and it was like, but why? So, you mentioned the VR2 sales have been lackluster. And people still can't get PS5s. Mm-hmm. I think they should focus on getting more PS5s out there for people. Now, if you need to go to the bathroom, like, first off, you could pause your game, right? You're not.
I don't know, Barry. That visual novel, if it's really popping, I got to keep up with it.
I can pause it. But even still, like, if you want to go to bed and finish a level, that thing better turn off your PS5 or it's going to be blowing all night. And those things get hot. You don't want it sitting running all night long. Like that, and if it can't do that, or you have some interference, I mean, you're talking wireless. How many other wireless devices do we all have in the house? And is there going to be any interference? And then, of course, the Switch exists. There's so many games that are also on the Switch that if you really are in a situation where you can't use the TV consistently, then you know what? You play the Switch version of them so that you can be more mobile. I don't see this. I see the diehard Sony fans going crazy for it, of course, but that's the minority of people. I see it as being a really hard sell because even with the Vita, they tried with the remote play and all that stuff, and it was novel and it was great, but it didn't save the Vita. The Vita still died, and the Vita actually was a proprietary handheld device with dedicated games
and exclusive titles.
Exclusive titles, yeah. This is just like, look, we're copying Nintendo again, and yeah, it's not as good, but please give us money.
Anything that you could only play on this device, I would argue is a game that you wouldn't want to play on this device. Like, do you want to play God of War on, a screen this big? Like, no. I don't really think so. Like, I think you want your big TV to show off all the beauty and the 4K, HDR and all that. Like, are you really going to be getting that experience out of an 8-inch LCD? No,
of course
not.
No.
Just wait, guys. You're going to be able to wirelessly connect to your PS5 and then stream it to another TV in your household. That's the kicker, right? I'm just kidding. I don't know if that's true.
Well, and nobody will be able to use the PS5. Like, that's the thing. Like, good thing that we all have like super smart TVs now, because otherwise nobody can use that TV if you're using that, because all the media streaming services are on the PS5.
Yeah. Now here's the one thing they didn't talk about, which is really cool, is that it's going to be compatible with PSVR 2 games, but the way to do it is you need to have Google Cardboard and put this device in Google Cardboard up to your head, and you're going to get PSVR 2 streaming capabilities.
And you have to hold it, like this.
Yeah.
While you're playing. Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, like I'm a diehard Sony fan, and this is absolutely not on my list of things to buy in 2023 and beyond.
They could
Yeah.
market like a really sweet like submarine periscope game.
This is one that, and again, like I'm a diehard handheld collector and stuff, and even I'm like with that, it'd be like, you know what, I'll get it when it gets discontinued,
Yeah.
and I'll get it for the sake of putting it on display as a failure from Sony.
It
Yeah.
might be
right next to your PS5 camera.
Yeah. Which that's actually hooked up onto my TV. I just have no idea why it even exists, why they even made that at launch, but it does exist.
Maybe it'll be like one of those situations where there will be a sweet period of time, kind of like the what was it, the PS TV, like the Vita accessory
Yep.
one, like that was super cheap, and then everybody realized that it was like the best exploit thing ever, and now they're like expensive and hard to find. It's like these things will bottom out. Somebody will figure out how it's actually the best thing ever for just like emulation, because it's got a screen and a controller, and they found out you could just like solder in a USB stick to it. Now you've got games or whatever.
Yeah, but do we need another emulation handheld? There's like a billion of them.
Yeah.
You know what? The only one that's done it right is Soldier Boy. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Soldier game.
All right, let's dive into our next topic here. So a U.S. senator has asked Sony, the Sony CEO, to reveal PlayStation's game exclusivity deals. This is Chris Scullion at Video Games Chronicle, but if I'm going based on Brian's notes, it's Video Games Chronicle.
Yeah.
So this is Senator Kevin Kramer of North Dakota on the U.S. and he pretty much sent out a letter to Yoshida saying that he needs the following unredacted copies of all agreements that give Sony an exclusive right to distribute a third-party game, all agreements between Sony and third-party publishers that prevent them from releasing their games on other systems, all internal company documents describing the strategic rationale for Sony's decision to acquire Bungie, all correspondence with U.S. government or regulatory agencies relating to video game competition. So quite a lot going there. Part of me like agrees with this, but the other part of it is also a U.S. senator trying to protect U.S. investments, and that being Microsoft, based on it being a U.S. company. So I don't know how much of it I take as like, this being a genuine, hey, what's going on between Microsoft and Sony? And is this truly, let's go against Sony because of the following? Or is this, I'm a U.S. senator, I'm trying to protect U.S. interests, and I'm going to reach out to try and get all this information about Sony because an American company is threatened. So that's kind of the view I had on this. But it's interesting to note in North Dakota, apparently, like this senator is stating that like North Dakota is going to be like a hub for like the gaming industry, and that there's thousands of jobs that are going to be opened up because of gaming. And he sees this as really destroying competition in the market, I guess, Sony's practices, and how that's going to be, bad for North Dakota, really. So, I mean, he's kind of looking out for his citizens as well. So Barry, have you taken a look at this one, or had you heard about this?
I hadn't heard about this, but it really doesn't surprise me. And I think you're right. I think it's protecting American interests, American jobs, American companies. And we all know that practices, under the table practices between companies, there's a lot that we don't know about, but a lot of it isn't good. I mean, look, even Nintendo did it back in the day on the NES with the chip, the lockout chip, where there was proprietary and you had to go through them, and they did that for a reason. They had a lot of those type of rules and restrictions, even couldn't put out so many games, and that's why Konami made Ultra and Atari Tengen and stuff like that. So Nintendo's not excused of it, but Sony lately has absolutely come out as like the bully. Has been like they're very egotistical. They've always been egotistical. They feel that they're absolutely the best on the market. They actually spur the console wars. I don't know if you saw this article or not, but it came out in a patent that over the last decade, in patents that Sony has filed, they have thrown shade at both Microsoft and Nintendo, hidden in their patents. But if you use the legal PDF form, you don't see those insults. And it's like, how petty do you have to be to kind of put these little jabs in your patents? So it's definitely Sony feeling they are the best and they will absolutely do things to crush. If they could push a button right now and it would instantly blow up Microsoft and instantly blow up Nintendo, they would absolutely push that button. Where Microsoft and Nintendo will both say how competition is good for the industry, support one another, and will not push that button at all. Now, that's not to say that companies don't want success. They absolutely want to be the top dog, but they also know that you don't destroy other companies, you don't put other companies down, and you don't do things that are unethical against one another. And for the most part, they succeed, those two. There's still some questionable things, of course. There's always going to be questionable things, but they don't have the ego that Sony does. Nintendo marches to the beat of their own drum. They have for years, and Microsoft is too busy buying companies to pay attention. Sony is always the one. We need this exclusive here. We need this exclusive here, and you have to only work with us. And look at Final Fantasy 16, for example. Only can run on a PS5 when the Xbox Series X is technically more powerful. How could it only run on a PS5? That's asinine to me. It can absolutely.
It'll be on PC a year later.
Yes.
So
that means it's bullshit. It's a timed exclusive. Fine, say it's a timed exclusive, but don't say it can only run on PS5 because that's absolutely not true. So
and that's a Japanese company
Yeah.
backing another Japanese company for Japanese interests. I mean, is when you kind of look at it, that's what that is.
Well, Japan approved the Microsoft Blizzard deal, and I don't see how they could really object. Like with Sony's dominance, like they'd be like, we can't really actually hold Microsoft back from doing this. Like there is no competition here.
Yeah, I mean that's got to be the mindset there too, right? Like, well, we don't want to look at it or appear as like we're only backing Sony, so they have to kind of back Microsoft. But the Japanese companies are going to support the Japanese companies, and that's one of the reasons Microsoft has struggled so mightily in Japan, and obviously the consumer base too. I mean, they're Nintendo and Sony are kind of the homegrown companies, right? So if I'm a Japanese consumer and the pride that I have in those companies, I'm going to support Japanese companies over Microsoft. That's just how it is. And that's the instance here. You've got an American company in Microsoft, and you've got a Republican U.S. senator. And honestly, there's Democratic senators as well. It goes later in the article to state that in the last month, there's been 2 letters, one from 4 Republican members of Congress, the other from 6 Democrats, that have accused Sony of deliberately making exclusivity deals with third-party publishers to ensure that Xbox doesn't gain foothold in Japan. And that, honestly, I would not be surprised if that is the case. You know, but I mean, you've literally got Democrats and Republicans that are on both sides trying to protect U.S. interests, obviously.
Yep. Yeah. So it is interesting. I will say the last thing on this is that it is like addressed to Yoshida, and I've seen like Jim Ryan's name more over all of the other articles going around like the purchase, because he's the one like speaking out for like Sony America and like the getting caught quoted, like, we just want to block your deal. I don't want your 10-year Xbox or whatever he said. Like,
well, I think Jim Ryan's more of like the figurehead right now, or like that voice, and you kind of need that from a global basis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like English is definitely a language that's a little more common on a global basis than Japanese, just to be honest. So if you've got Jim Ryan as kind of that main point of contact, that makes a little more sense from a global basis to have him as that individual. But calling out the CEO is obviously calling out the CEO. So I think that's important to kind of note there too. So, all right.
Speaking of getting called out.
Yeah. Speaking of wars. So Nintendo escalates the war on popular Zelda YouTuber behind the multiplayer Breath of the Wild mod. And this is Ethan Gack at Kotaku. So really, so the YouTuber here is Eric Point Crow, is a YouTuber, and basically he does speed runs. He does on mod, like speed runs of mods and such, and just really kind of covers Zelda content in general. And so Nintendo recently flagged. It says that he has 28 flags and strikes claims and strikes that have hit his channel over Nintendo content, and he's just like, stop! Like, can you guys please stop flagging this content? Like, we're trying to support Zelda. We're trying to, put more noise in the market on Zelda products, and you're, striking us on every single thing that comes out. So, Barry, I know you guys do some streaming and stuff with Premium Edition games. Like, what's your opinion on, in general, streaming of content like this? And, is Nintendo overreacting, or is Nintendo just doing what Nintendo does? And that's like protect their IP to no end.
Nintendo, eh, they want to protect their IP, but they absolutely overreact. This is advertisement. This was the whole thing when they had this war on YouTubers, and then they did like the YouTube content creators thing, and look, it's advertisement. Okay, anytime someone is streaming your game or talking about your game, like right now, we are actually advertising for Nintendo, and Nintendo is not cutting us a check. We are advertising because we're talking about the company. We're talking about Zelda. We're mentioning Zelda here in this because these are content creators for Zelda, which someone listening goes, oh, yeah, Tears of the Kingdom comes out next month. Boom, advertisement that they get for free. It's so silly to stop that. Now, if someone's making millions of dollars on their game, absolutely, I see them coming in and saying, whoa, hold on. Your content is just streaming our game, and you're making millions of dollars. We want a cut of it. I get that, and I can say that is understandable because they provided the content. If this is a YouTuber that's making $100, whatever, they're advertising. Put that in your marketing budget. Or it's like you're paying them $100 in a sense for them to advertise your game for you. People do it all the time. That's marketing. They send review copies of their games to review sites for the purpose of reviewing and advertising and showing off and talking about their games. So think of it that way. That's what you have to think of. They're smaller, sure. Let them have it. Let them get whatever they get because they're advertising your product. Now, if they're advocating for a mod that they do not want, I can see them going after saying we don't want this mod shown because we do not like this mod. Now, there's multiple reasons why they would do something like this. One, maybe they have their own internal mod going, or maybe that's an internal feature of Tears of the Kingdom that they don't want ruined. We don't know. Look at AM2R, where they shut that down because they literally had their own Metroid 2 remake coming out right after. And again, there's a conflict of interest. I get it. What they should do is say, like, we just, first off, if they're a small enough company, just let it go. Or say, look, we just really don't want you showing off this mod because we do not want people hacking our games, and just be nice about it. Be like, look, try to be understand. They're people.
Or just, in general, just have them any monetization as types. So this guy has like 1.6 million subscribers, right? So obviously he's going to get some money that's coming from it. So just demonetize it. Allow a guy to continue putting the content out there, but demonetize. And at the end of the day, by demonetizing a person, is there any incentive to show these types of videos? Absolutely not, because they're not making any money off of it. So they're going to go a different route in general, naturally, because they're demonetized.
But they're still showing a mod that they may not want people to see.
Yeah, and in those instances, like you said, hey, reach out, maybe a cease and desist. Like, this is something that we do not appreciate. We don't want it out there, blah, 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 blah. But like a general speed run, for example, I could see that as like, why Nintendo?
Yeah.
Like there's no point.
I mean, it's just about terms of service, right? So if you play it in like an MMO, for example, you have to sign a terms of service. So if you're playing the MMO and you're streaming the MMO and you're doing hard content, they don't care. Sometimes they'll even feature you. But if you're showing your screen and you've got mods all over and you've got parsers up and you've got things that are against terms of services and maybe you've different graphical patches and they can see that, they're going to tell you take that down because they're not going to advocate for that because those are things that go against their own terms of service that you agree to. So they probably look at this as like a terms of service. Like, our terms of service is you got to play the game the way we released it. And what you're doing is you're modding it and adding in features that we did not approve of.
And that's totally understandable.
He outlines that in his response video here, actually. Eric does. So he points out that like when you get the game, it has that like terms of service on there that says like you won't modify this. It also says you won't stream this or like show it to other people in that way. And then there's kind of the broader Nintendo like community guidelines and agreement that they have that kind of supersedes and in boxes that like internal like just the packaging of the game one. So because people do stream and stuff, and it's a good thing that they can't apply this unilaterally, because it would suck for what happened to him to happen to like everybody, especially even smaller content creators. But like, that's the thing, like, people will put up videos, of whatever they love for no money for a long time, and then once the money comes in, all of a sudden that's when it's the problem. But by that point, they've done so much work and put so much of themselves into it. People aren't watching this guy because he's the only person and the only way that they can watch Zelda stuff. They're watching him because they love him and what he does and how he transforms the content.
Well,
so
and let's
they just don't respect that.
And let's look at, this part 2. So he says that they nuked 10 of his streams. 2 of them were videos that they removed off the face of the platform. And he says, no answer, no context, just a copyright removal. Only one of the videos had nothing to do with mods. It was a Zelda challenge run. So I think, when you kind of look at it in this respect too, he says, to be clear, I've never encouraged piracy of Nintendo games. He said, the mods I've commissioned are not being sold, and all of the code is custom, meaning they are free of Nintendo assets. So Barry, back to your point, he's obviously got mods in game. Nintendo, doesn't want those mods to be out there. It's not how the game is meant to be played. It's not how it should be played. So, honestly, like, is Nintendo overreacting? A lot of times they do. In this instance, you have a YouTuber who's actively got mods of a game in market. I could totally see Nintendo's point to be like, no, take it off. He does have a point, though. He says one of them was a Zelda challenge run that had nothing to do with mods. That's an instance where Nintendo is overreacting. But you know what? The guy, say he has 10 videos that are mods and one of them is not a mod video. Nintendo is going to flag them all, and blanket it. It makes sense.
Yeah. That was just like an innocent bystander. It was guilty by association.
Exactly.
Because they're not watching all this. They're not going to sit there and watch. They're going to say, "Oh, he's got mods. He's got mods. And he uploaded 10 videos." You said, just flag them all. Just assume they're all, and boom, easier said than done.
Yeah. So I mean, and this is an instance where maybe the creator is in the wrong here. Nintendo does overreact, and they do all the time. But I think in this instance, you do have a creator who might be a little bit in the wrong. So. All right. So let's dive into our inflation deflation of the week. Barry, I don't know if you've played this one. It sounded like you might have, but Tenchu Z on the Xbox 360. It's developed by K2 LLC. It was published by Microsoft Game Studios, directed by Kyoji Tomita. Released in June of 2007. It is an action-adventure stealth game. Reception is around the 5 out of 10 range. And then from a plot perspective, the House of Goda, where the Azuma ninja clan resides under the service of Lord Goda, is on the brink of war with a neighboring country of Ogawara. As a new recruit of the Azuma ninja clan, the protagonist is sent to assassinate those who are assisting the country of Ogawara, including the army generals and spies who have infiltrated the House of Goda, as well as recover stolen items and rescue prisoners in between thwarting the country of Ogawara's plans. So one thing to note here with this plot is it has nothing to do with any of the other Tenchu games. There's no tie-in whatsoever to the old games other than you do have a couple of the characters from the prior games that are, that's participate, I guess you could say, within the game itself, but there's nothing story-wise that ties anything together here. So Ryan, in my opinion, when playing this game, it felt like I was playing an HD version of Tenchu. That's really what it kind of came down to. There was nothing different from what we experienced in playing Tenchu 1 other than
Tenchu 2.
Or Tenchu 2, other than smoother controls, right? Because of what you're playing, the controls are still janky compared to what Tenchu 2 is. But it's basically an HD version. There's a few different elements, like if you jump into a cesspool, you smell of a cesspool and enemies can find you. There's cool elements where, like, if you walk too fast, like a puddle of water, or you hit certain things on the ground, the enemies will notice you right off the bat. But I think control-wise, it played, in my opinion, just like Tenchu 2. Story-wise, it felt just like Tenchu 2, going for missions and moving forward as you normally would. And, it was just the same gameplay. So I don't think that there was nothing here that was like groundbreaking compared to what had already been released in the Tenchu games. And I think that's probably where the reception, that 5 out of 10 comes into play. I personally don't think it's a 5 out of 10. I think it's probably a little bit higher, just given that, it's still Tenchu. It's still the great stuff you love. It's kind of looking at from the mindset of like, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And there's nothing broken about this game in any capacity, in my mind. So I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, the little bit that we played, it does have a little more blood than the prior Tenchus, which is nice. It does have that stealth that I absolutely love, and it's mission based, which is just very easy to kind of pick up and play and move on to the next thing. So, what was your thought as well?
Oh man, so I did not remember a whole lot about Tenchu 2, but man, Tenchu Z was not the game for me, man. I just trying to do the tutorial and remember all the like different punting combinations and just like what to like. I don't know. Stealth games are just not my bag, and like once the stealth is blown, it just didn't really have good feeling to like the combat. Like I feel like a lot of close combat games suffer from not great feeling of close combat and like weapon fighting, and it just really felt like just like I don't know, I can just mash this and attack everything. Like what am I even doing stealthing here? And I'm sure that it's very necessary for like the later game or like to get objectives done and things like that. And being forced into that bubble with the jank and not really good alternatives, it just makes it so that it's not really for me, I think. So I bounced off it pretty hard, and I could definitely see a lot of the 5 out of 10-iness involved.
Yeah, I mean, Tenchu the stealth component is one of those like, it's kind of like Ghost of Tsushima, right? Like there's stealth elements in Ghost of Tsushima, and like that's something that you benefit from obviously if you go forward with it, but you don't have to do it to complete the game, right? Like you can just go balls to the wall, like slashing everything, and you can in this too. But it's more so, I think the coolness factor is what they're kind of wanting there, right? Like the different types of stealth kills that you get with Tenchu. Like that's what you kind of aim for when you play these games. Like, oh, I can be super stealthy. I can get these cool stealth kills. And that's what you're supposed to be doing, right? Like that's just how it's meant to be played. It's not meant to be a hack and slash. And so if you're not a fan of like stealth style games, you're just not honestly going to be a really big fan of Tenchu. And for me though, also like when it's mission based like this, it's hard to really get into stories on mission based games. Like there's 50 missions in this game. So you're fragmenting, it's not a streamlined, it's a story, right? But it's not like you kind of progress and you progress and you progress and things kind of build on. There's anticipation. It's like, oh, I finished my mission. Let me wander around. Let me go to this person. What's my next mission? And just kind of, that to me is not a good way to go about a game like this. I honestly wish it was more so just kind of developing story over time versus missions. Barry, have you played this one or no?
No, I have not played this one. Like I said, I have it, but it's the Tenchu series has never been one I've been big on because I'm not a big stealth guy. I like to prefer to go in, and you've mentioned like Ghost of Tsushima, and that I did some stealth stuff, but if I got stuck or I got cover blown, I'm like screw it, and I'm just killing everybody.
And it felt great.
It felt great. So it's definitely one of those where it's great for people who love stealth, and I hope I think this was like the last Tenchu game, right? This is like kill the series.
Yeah, I don't think there's another one.
So
I think this is it. Yeah.
This is it. So if that's your jam, then great. I'm sorry to hear that it was rated a 5 out of 10, but glad that you seem to like it, John, and that it's better. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That doesn't surprise me. A lot of companies will do that.
Yeah. Cool. So let's see. Complete in box. We're looking at 1933 right now. It peaked at 2320 back in March of this year. It's trending downwards. Loose copy right now will run you 1288. That peaked like just about everything. That peaked 1829 in February of last year. And it was actually the highest since 1 year from launch. And then that's also trending down. It's not available digital from what we could see in terms of digital console, digital PC.
People talking online saying that it was available on the Microsoft Store, but then I couldn't find like a link to anything except for like some like DLC or some like wallpaper or something on an old link.
Yeah. Well, so Ryan, my rating here in terms of inflate or deflate, I would say it's just right at $20. I mean, that's, you're getting a Tenchu game for $20. I mean, the vast majority of these games are above $20. I mean, it's just what it is. That's the reality of it. So at 1933 for complete in box, I honestly think that's a pretty good deal for a Tenchu game.
So you're just thinking like in the long run, getting it at that price because it'll be more expensive later on?
No, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, more expensive for this game might be like $30. You're talking several years from now, potentially seeing $30 on this game. So it's more so in the mindset of like, if you like Tenchu or you just like stealth action games, $20 is not a bad deal for a game that is, very much akin to the original Tenchu series. There's nothing broken about this. And, you're getting a fun game for $20. I mean, that's just my mindset on it. 50 missions, $20, hours of gameplay. I think it's.
I don't know. I feel like I've played better games on this show that you've said $20 was too much for. See, this is why I didn't want to just agree to a rating before, because I gotta talk it out sometimes. Like, and I know that it might just be me bouncing off. Like, I feel like we're a group of 3 people that this isn't necessarily any of our jam, but I mean, there's lots of games that have 50 missions that aren't worth $20, and I don't think that that's really a justification.
You could have 100 missions. If the missions aren't fun, it doesn't matter. Then it's more of a torture.
And if this is the worst rated Tenchu game, like, I don't think that necessarily means that it's going to be like $30 down the road.
I mean, come on, man. We got Color a Dinosaur that's like a 1 out of 10, and that thing's like, crazy.
Well, you can't really compare that apple and oranges.
I know.
People weren't collecting video games back then. However, there is something very important that's coming up here. In the year 2025, the 360 will be 20 years, which means it hits its 20-year anniversary. And that's usually when we see what I like to call a renaissance when it comes to prices, because that means the people who grew up with the 360 as their first console are now in their 20s. That means they have some disposable income and they absolutely want to relive the games of their childhood, which drives the price of all those games up.
And here's something to consider here. Tenchu Z, last of the series, right? Not the best of reviews, so didn't sell very well, exclusive to Xbox 360.
Actually, it's not the last one. There was Shadow Assault Tenchu.
Oh. What was that on?
360.
Okay, I'll have to look into that.
And that's by From Software.
So, but here's something to consider. Still, Xbox 360 exclusive.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the big thing there, right? And is it available anywhere digitally? If it is not, then Barry's point, 20-year renaissance, you've got some disposable income, you want to play a Tenchu game, it's exclusive, it will go up.
I mean, so compared to other Xbox 360 titles, like, is this a $20 about what you would expect to pay for your like run-of-the-mill?
Yeah, I mean, dude, like games like Viva Pinata, I think are like $15, and those are like mass-produced games. So
I guess I was assuming that Xbox 360 was all still like pretty cheap. So I'll fine, you convinced me. It's just right, folks. It's just right.
That other Shadows Tenchu game from Software, I don't think that was released physically. If it was
I'm looking on eBay right now, and I didn't see it anywhere.
I think it's digital only, which of course changes things because digital only titles. But it's not going to be the same value as a physical.
Actually, this isn't the worst rated one. It's not even the second worst rated.
And then here's the thing, like the only other one I could see here is Tenchu Return from Darkness, but that was like a remake, if I recall, on the Xbox. And funny enough, Activision on that one. So
did that one get a physical?
That one did get a physical, but that's on the Xbox, the original.
The original, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, man, like I'm looking on eBay right now, like a pre-owned copy of Complete in Box Tenchu Z, there's a number of listings that are like $19.99 plus shipping though, and like a couple that are $23 free shipping with no manual, $28 free shipping. So this game is already in comparison to what we've got here based on average prices, $23 or $19. Yes, that is the sale price, but when you factor in shipping and tax and everything else, you are looking closer to $30 at the end of the day. So I definitely
if you
think
like
that
360 games or stealth games, it's perfect for you. Pick it up for $20.
There's that only exclusive or only on Xbox 360 tag. That's the all important aspect here.
That's a collectible thing. A lot of people collect just the exclusives.
That's all, actually, dude, for 360 and Xbox, that is all I buy is games that are released exclusively on the console. And if games are released later on PC or it was only exclusive to Xbox, but then it came out on like PlayStation 4 later on down the road. Those are games that I don't buy. So I'm very much on that point, right? Anything Xbox, it must have been an exclusive, because I just frankly will play other games on PlayStation 3 or other consoles at that point.
Yeah.
What about when the game is superior on the 360?
Ooh.
Like Bayonetta, for example, which runs much better than the PS3 version.
Yeah, there's instances where, yes, I will do that. And honestly, like when it comes down, like you had brought up earlier, like Switch, right? And you know, playing a game on Switch because it could be on the go versus PlayStation 4, right?
Mhm.
Oftentimes the PS4 version is going to be superior to PS5 version is going to be superior to the Switch version, oftentimes, graphically speaking. And so those are instances where if it's on both of those consoles, I will generally buy it on the PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 4. However, platformers I tend to purchase on the Switch for whatever reason. It's just something, if it's a platformer, I'm buying it on the Switch. But if it's something like Ys 8 and Ys 9, I'm buying it on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 all day long.
And see, I played it on the PlayStation as well. For those, even Rise of 3 is on the Switch. I am playing it on the PS5 version. However, with a kid on the way, I'll probably be playing more of the Switch versions on those. But other types like Octopath Traveler 2, I did the Switch version, even though it's on PS4 and 5, simply because I could lay in bed and I could grind a little bit and I could level up. And the graphics aren't really any different between those two versions anyways. It looks gorgeous on the OLED.
Yeah. Barry, with you having a kid on the way, I cannot wait to hear you be like, yep, I tried to boot up my game and I fell asleep right on the spot. Dude,
that already happened just yesterday playing Rise of 3. I was like, oh, my wife walked in, sat down, like, oh, you want to do something? You want to watch TV or something? She's like, oh, maybe in a bit I'm going to take a nap. And she laid down and I immediately like, that looks pretty good. And I just conked out. So
the other night I had full intentions of sitting back, playing some Cardia. I sat on the couch. My dog laid down next to me, or one of my dogs. I jumped on my phone because I had to check a couple emails. And next thing you know, I'm knocked out. Or actually, next thing you know, I look at the clock. It's 10:30 and I've got the baby moving around the monitor. I'm like, oh, crap. All right, let me go feed him. So fed him, was wide awake, went down and played Cardia till midnight, and then went to sleep. Like, it was just, dude, it's crazy. But that was like 9 o'clock that happened. I don't fall asleep at 9 o'clock. Apparently now I do that.
Well, it was 4 o'clock for me in the afternoon. I fell asleep from 4 o'clock to like 5:30 because she passed out, and it just like drained me. I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to do it too.
Yeah, just wait, dude. Yeah, more of that coming. Yeah, you thought you could play RPGs? Think again.
That's all right. I'll find a way to do it. Where there's a will, there's a way.
There is. Yeah, caffeine at midnight.
I don't even drink coffee. That's the worst part.
You will now.
No, I got to do it without it. I'll tough it out.
It's tough, man. Well, Barry, thanks again for coming on. Definitely appreciate having you on every time you're on the show. So looking forward to appearance number 8 in the future. But this has been, and we're not going to mess it up this time. This has been episode 231 of the Game Deflators Podcast. My name's John.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Barry.
And thanks for listening.